Good afternoon. A lot to get to at 4 o'clock. We're glad you're here. I'm Dustin Grove.
And I'm Felicia Lawrence. Today, people here in Indiana finally started to see some of their SNAP benefits return.
But that looks different for everybody, and so it's causing some confusion. Our Ella Rhodes looked into that today. She joins us now to help clarify what Hoosiers can expect here. Ella, what'd you learn?
Yeah, Dustin and Felicia, like you said, it is a little murky and a lot of people have a lot of questions. So that's what we do in our job, is try to get those answers for you. So here's the baseline. If you receive SNAP, the partial funding you receive today depends on how many people are in your household and your income, because everyone is receiving a different amount. So as we first told you on 13 News at 4 yesterday, Governor Mike Braun said Hoosiers who use SNAP will receive some of that money today. We reached out to the Indiana Family and Social Services Administration. They say not every family on SNAP will get 65% of what they normally receive. FSSA says it's different for every family. A typical family of 4 on SNAP normally receives maximum $994. If they got the maximum amount of the partial funding, that 65%, they would receive around $646. The state says due to the partial funding, around 4,000 families on SNAP will not get any SNAP reimbursements until all the funding is restored. Now, the Indy Hunger Network, which tracks food insecurity in central Indiana, says despite people receiving a fraction of their SNAP benefits, people in food pantries are still stressed.
The most vulnerable Hoosiers seem to be being toyed with right now, and that really is hard to watch. And I hope the shutdown ends soon, because some folks are really going to be in desperate straits.
With the government shutdown potentially ending in the next few days, the funding for SNAP could return soon, but it will take time to ensure people receive their benefits.
Okay, so you mentioned these food pantries. They've been working to fill the gaps in the meantime. So how are they keeping up with
Yeah, they are trying to keep up as best as possible, but they are just inundated. And you'll hear from them ahead at 5 on how they're trying to keep up with the demand that they're seeing out their doors.
Yeah, certainly a struggle there, but hopefully Hoosiers coming together can help ease that burden. Ella Rhodes reporting today. Thank you so much. In other news, a small band of Senate Democrats voted with Republicans to reopen the federal government. They agreed to join the vote without securing Democrats' demand to guarantee an extension of enhanced Affordable Care Act subsidies, which help millions of Americans afford insurance. It is now up to the House, which could vote as soon as tomorrow. Julia Benbrook is at the White House with next steps.
A major breakthrough in the Senate as the chamber approved a funding bill that could end what is now the longest government shutdown in history. It now heads to the House and must be approved there before it lands on President Donald Trump's desk for a signature. Here's what's in the deal. It's a stopgap measure to fund the government through January 30th. SNAP benefits will be paid through fiscal year 2026. Federal workers fired during the shutdown will be reinstated, and no more mass firings will take place through January. Ahead of the Senate's vote, Trump said he supported the plan.
Based on everything I'm hearing, they haven't changed anything, and we have support from enough Democrats, and we're going to be opening up our country. It's too bad it was closed, but we'll be opening up our country very quickly. I'll abide by the deal. The deal is very good.
Now, the deal does not do what Democrats have repeatedly pushed for throughout this process: extend the enhanced Obamacare subsidies set to expire at the end of the year. It does promise a future Senate vote on it, but the House has not committed to taking it up. The shutdown continues to be politically painful for members of both parties. Republicans have repeatedly shouldered the blame for the lapse in funding in recent polling, and this deal, struck by Democratic centrists in the Senate, has ignited a fight within the party about its strategy going forward. At the White House, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Even when the government does finally reopen, airports will still likely see delays, and cancellations in some cases actually get worse. It's basically a snowball effect. Remember, on Friday, the FAA began cutting flights due to staffing shortages. Some TSA officers, air traffic controllers stopped showing up because of burnout, work stress, and frankly, some of them having to pick up a second job. On Monday, 1,700 flights were canceled. On top of that, another 1,000 flights canceled today. And here's the thing. The FAA's emergency order to reduce flights calls for airlines to cancel those flights 7 days before they're scheduled to fly to give passengers plenty of notice. And once those flights are canceled, they can't easily be restored. And assuming the shutdown ends sometime this week and air traffic controllers come back to work, one aviation expert says air travel can be very close to back to normal by Thanksgiving, which of course is the busiest travel weekend of the year.
Oh, we needed the heavy coat again today, all day long. Temperatures right now only in the upper 30s. We have 37 Bainbridge, 38 Noblesville, 38 Indianapolis. A little colder for our eastern viewing area where we've had a few off and on flurries. Right now in Connorsville, only 32 degrees. Now, technically, these temperatures are warmer from this time yesterday by about 5 to 10 degrees. We're up 7 in Indianapolis and Lafayette, up 6 in Kokomo, up 6 in Muncie, up 5 in Bloomington and Columbus. However, there's still a fairly brisk wind that makes it feel like the middle and upper 20s for most of us, feeling like 28 in Indianapolis and feeling like 25 in Muncie. So what you need to know for the rest of this evening, if you're going to be out walking the dog, taking the kids out to a few errands or practice, you're still going to need that heavy coat. Overnight temperatures down into the 30s. This isn't as cold as what we had this morning, so that's a piece of good news. However, still cold enough for a heavier coat to start our Wednesday, and then it's going to be one of those days where we shed the layers. A lighter coat by noon, 50 degrees, and high temperatures tomorrow with maybe a sweatshirt by late afternoon in the mid-50s, but you'll also need the sunglasses. We've got some sunshine on the way for tomorrow. Also on the way, a big time warm-up. We're going to go from 50s the next couple of days to near 70 to start the weekend, but we will also be keeping an eye on a rain chance. Right now we've got that rain chance on the way for Sunday. It's a low chance, but I'll have an early look at that timeline in the full forecast.
Okay, thank you, Angela. And now for an update to a story that many of you are reading about on WTHR.com. We're talking about the 32-year-old mother who was shot and killed outside a Whitestown home. One of the big unanswered questions here revolves around the homeowner's rights. Jenna Webster takes a deeper look.
We know a lot of you have questions about why charges haven't been filed yet in the Whitestown case where a woman who's part of a cleaning crew was shot and killed last week. So we did want to take a moment to explain Indiana's self-defense law and specifically the stand your ground statute that's part of that. There's 3 major prongs to this that you need to know. The person claiming self-defense is in a place they have the right to be, like their home. They can't be committing or fleeing from a crime or the initial aggressor. And finally, they have to believe their use of deadly force was reasonable. I talked to a criminal defense attorney who says that reasonable piece is really key. She says the Boone County prosecutor is likely gathering evidence right now to determine if the alleged shooter acted reasonably, whether or not their belief that deadly force was necessary. It can come down really to a single fact, she says, like whether someone is ringing the doorbell or jiggling it.
All right, thank you, Jenna. More news now. Police are investigating a deadly shooting in the middle of the day today on the Near East Side. It happened around noon on Fletcher Avenue near South Sherman and English. That's where officers found a person who'd been shot. Medics rushed the victim to the hospital, but they didn't survive. Detectives have not said anything to us yet about possible suspects or arrests.
And another shooting as police are investigating. It happened early this morning on the southeast side around 3:30 a.m. on Gale Street, which is near Prospect and Sherman. Police say they found a man there who had been shot and killed. Anyone with info is asked to contact IMPD or Crime Stoppers. The number 317-262-TIPS.
And shortly after that, another man was killed in a shooting on the northeast side. It happened near Washington Park. Police say they were called to North Oxford Street shortly after 5 a.m. They call it an isolated incident between 2 people.
If you're having an issue with your neighbor, if you're having an issue with somebody in our community, please reach out for assistance. Walk away. This is not you do not need to pull a firearm out every time you're upset. You do not need to have a permanent solution for a temporary emotion.
Police say they did interview multiple people, but no arrests have been made. They're still working to find out what led to that shooting exactly.
An IU lecturer is claiming she was removed from a class after a student complained the content potentially violated state law. The investigation centers around a graphic about white supremacy. Ashton Hackman has more details.
An IU lecturer says she was removed from the classroom after a student made a complaint about a lesson talking about white supremacy. Jessica Adams is a lecturer in the IU School of Social Work. She says she was giving a class earlier this year on structural racism, and as part of that lesson, She included a scholarly article that had a graphic with it. Here is that graphic in question. It is known as the Pyramid of White Supremacy. It lists several terms or phrases as socially acceptable and unacceptable forms of racism. Adams said the student accused her of equating Make America Great Again with police killings of people of color as similar forms of white supremacy. Adams wasn't available for an interview today, and an IU spokesperson tells me they cannot comment on personnel matters.